Okay, I hope this is working. And if you are watching this video, God bless you. Happy Sunday. And today is the Super Bowl, of course. I'm curious how many of you are going to actually be watching that or care about the Super Bowl, but nonetheless, it's the Super Bowl. An American staple, right? So, yeah, I figured I go live every single day, just so you are aware. So if you're new here, make sure to please like, subscribe, do all the things so you guys don't miss the live streams. Typically, I go live every single morning, but on Sunday, we go live in the afternoons. So, great to see all of you guys, or it might be morning for some of you, right? Depending on where you live. And if you are joining the live stream, I see you guys. Thank you for being here. And God bless all of you. And I see some of my mods are in here. I didn't even tell you guys I was going live. Yeah, it's the Super Bowl edition. It is the Super Bowl edition because we will be seeing some back and forth with some politicians here later in the show. We're going to go through some of our favorite politicians. In fact, Hakeem Jeffries got kind of called out on CNN. We have been exploring this topic in my shows here, as many of you are aware. There's a statistic out there that Democrats have to keep facing. 71% of Democrats support wanting voter ID, yet the guys in charge of the party are saying no. So let's see if we'll see if Hakeem Jeffries responds to this. Tom Homan has some more things to say as far as cooperation, communication between the jails in Minnesota. It's being reported the Trump administration is seeing a lot of support right now. We also saw yesterday, I'm sure some of you are aware, yesterday was a pretty big protest. Around 50-ish people have been arrested. That number is lingering around 50. Not by federal agents, by the state police. Keep that in mind. We're also going to go through this article, and a lot of people are sort of questioning, like, what does this article even mean? But it's out there and it's going viral, and we're gonna talk about it. From Politico, ICE surveillance concerns shift Democrats' demand for body cameras. So even though Democrats are asking for body cameras, now all of a sudden we have some issues, according to Politico. Yeah, so we have a lot to go through. We have an Ohio representative introduced a bill to restrict ICE enforcement at sensitive locations. So we'll talk about that as well. We have a lot of topics to go through, and I know it's a Sunday, so I don't want to keep you guys here forever. So I do appreciate all of you guys. Thank you again for being here. And yeah, it is the Puppy Bowl. That is right. I forgot, the Puppy Bowl, another American staple. So let's start with this. Again, God bless all of you guys. Hope you're doing well. And we're going to start with this brand new Tom Homan interview. It was about an 8-minute interview, but this is the part that really stood out.
I am not a fool. I know there are people that want this to happen. There is a population there that wants the chaos. But for the politicians that say, we want you to arrest the criminals, we want you to target the criminals, but not let me in the jails, you can't square that. If you really want to arrest the criminals and target the criminals, which I do, then let us do it in the safety and security of a jail or a prison.
We have been highlighting this talking point nearly every single day for the last several days now, maybe even 5 days, where the Trump administration keeps pointing out across the board, basically every single politician in a sanctuary jurisdiction says, we want to keep the criminals out. And then, as Tom Homan says, but when we get to the jail conversation of let us work together, all of a sudden, we get differing answers as to why that's not the case. In fact, Gavin Newsom just got called out yesterday in a really big way. Kristi Noem announcing there are 33,000 criminals right now where we could be working together. And then Gavin Newsom responds and says, I do follow the law. And then, that trickled down into some drama. But I think you guys understand where we get into the crossroads here.
We're safer for the aliens, safer for the community, and safer for the agents. So for those, and there's many of them, on both sides of the aisle, says public safety threats are what you should be concentrating on. So everybody should come together and make that happen and give us access to the jails.
Now, we are getting indicators that the Trump administration is kind of getting what they want as far as communication or working together. However, because of that, now we talked about this a couple of days ago, but just a reminder, protesters are questioning Tim Walz's motive. But for a very quick reminder, this is from Frontlines TP USA. And also keep in mind, Tim Walz has not posted anything on his social media in like the last 3 days, by the way. We have not heard anything from Tim Walz, and he's rather active, but this happened 2 days ago.
What would be your message to Tim Walz right now?
I mean, I just wanted him to come on and talk to us. I mean, that's really it. Like, tell us what's going on, at least be a little transparent. We're transparent what we're asking for, so I just think he should be transparent back.
And do you feel as if Tim Walz has completely went against the left and the people that got him elected in the first place?
That's what it seems like right now. And I mean, but again, we don't know. I think we're just speculating, but it'd be nice to hear from him because it appears that way. Having ICE show up to the government center and arrest 2 people that were meeting with their attorneys yesterday is a completely escalation, in my opinion.
And in your opinion, what can he do to mend what has been broken right now to make things right?
For me personally, it would just be transparent. Either way.
Okay, so just trying to show you guys, we are seeing some pushback from some Tim Walz supporters asking for transparency or trying to figure out what exactly is going on here with, 2 weeks ago, there seemed to be some clashing between the Trump administration and Tim Walz, and now it seems like things are getting a little better. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen this on the internet. Yesterday, there was a Jake Lang protest, and many people were arrested because of it. Now, just a quick snippet of what that looked like. This is going to be from CNN.
A chaotic scene here in Minneapolis Saturday morning. A far-right activist showing up to an anti-ICE protest in the back of a U-Haul truck. His name is Jake Lang, with a campaign characterized...
Okay, so anyway, you guys probably saw a lot of that. So there were counter-protesters to the Jake Lang protest, which ended up in total mayhem. The state police had no choice but to try and calm the crowd down. So after Jake Lang left the area, the protesters lingered, and this is what the standoff looked like initially.
Every last one of you, right now. Well, there's more of us. There's more on the product. Oh, boy. Are we getting arrested?
And keep in mind, those are not federal agents, by the way. Obviously not here. But the security forces that we're sort of seeing square off, those are not federal agents. Again, these are indications that we see some sort of cooperation from the state and the Trump administration. As you guys remember, typically we would see like Chief Bovino and all of those Border Patrol agents having to defend this area of St. Paul, the Whipple building.
They won't care unless it becomes their sisters and mothers. Every last one of you, right now.
Okay, so then eventually it ended up into this.
You are under arrest. Be seated where you are and follow the directions of officers.
Leave me alone. We got the crowd under arrest. Leave me alone. We need one here too. Trooper, arrest her.
To my knowledge, I think this is the most amount of protesters we have seen arrested in one shot in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. Maybe you guys can fact check me on that, but I am almost positive we have never seen this many protesters arrested this fast. And keep in mind, these would be considered anti-ICE protesters as well. So what I will be doing during the Super Bowl, I'm just going to be transparent with you. I'm probably not going to watch it. I am going to be looking for the reactions from politicians because we saw this happen in Portland. A lot of politicians were not happy that what they would say were peaceful protesters were being arrested, and then we had another shift in the cooperation. So keep in mind, I'm just trying to show you guys, there seem to be indicators of some sort of cooperation considering, again, these are not federal agents. These are the state patrol. This is not Border Patrol.
My name is Athena Sierra, and all I'm doing is rolling on the ground. All
Stop resisting. Stay on the curb. You're going to get arrested too. Stay on the curb.
And that would be a sheriff right here as well. So again, multi-agency deployment as far as how many of these security forces are involved with handling the protesters here. There's a little bit more to this. Actually, we have another clip here. I think we can get it from Frontlines. Yeah, this is going to be from Frontlines TP USA. If you guys want to go give them a follow, here's some credit to them. Here's what it initially looked like.
You are under arrest. Be seated where you are and follow the directions of officers. You are under arrest. Be seated where you are and follow the directions of officers.
Okay, so some more indicators we're getting of cooperation would be this right here. You guys know about those checkpoints. Yesterday, video came to State Rep Kayla Berg. Kayla Berg posted a video of herself delivering groceries, and let's see what she has to say.
So we just finished delivering groceries to folks who are too afraid to leave their homes because of this ICE occupation in our community. An amazing amount of people have put together boxes of produce and meat, as well as toilet paper and diapers for those that need it, dry goods, even some treats to help our neighbors. And we will continue to do this for as long as we need to.
Okay, so yeah, keep in mind, this has already been happening in St. Paul and Minneapolis even before the surge. So just so you guys are aware, as far as context is concerned, but right now it's definitely more prevalent as far as having these food deliveries. Now, this could be for two reasons, or maybe three. Reason number one, as you just heard, people are afraid to leave their house. Reason number two, businesses are saying the reason why they're doing this is because business has declined by like 50%. So we're hearing that a lot. And number three, there could be somebody who's not supposed to be in the country legally. They have to eat, and this could be another way to get food. So keep in mind, this has already been happening, but it's becoming a lot more prevalent. Let us continue. And again, don't worry, this is not going to be a totally one-sided show. We will be getting to what Democrats are arguing as far as 71% of Democrats support voter ID, but we don't want that. We will be getting to that in a second. But we're just focusing on Minnesota real quick. And this is going to be Democrat Virginia Senator Mark Warner defends Tim Walz.
The law enforcement there, the local cops can't do their job because you've got so many ICE agents out and people having their houses raided, where then the local police has to come. They can't go about getting rid of traditional crime. This is a city under siege by, frankly, the federal government.
Okay, a city under siege. Let me know what you guys think about that. And definitely want to move on to the mayor of Chicago. Here's what he has to say. One thing the Trump administration has been arguing is that when we come into your city, the crime rate goes down. We are helping you out. We're adding federal assets. The mayor of Chicago says otherwise.
Been replicated in other big cities. Is the president right to say that it was his actions in Chicago, trying to bringing federal agents to Chicago, that made Chicago safer?
He is not. I mean, this president continues to, exacerbate, instability across our country. In fact, where ICE and federal agents were present, we actually saw an increase in violence. In other words, the tension and the chaos that federal agents bring to cities in America, it actually is counterproductive.
Now, to be fair to the argument, again, you guys might want to go take a look at the stats in Memphis, Tennessee. By a show of hands, you guys can put the number one in the chat. How many of you have heard anything about Memphis, Tennessee within like the last week or two? Has anybody heard anything? When you go and do your own research into Memphis, Tennessee, there was initial pushback from the city councilors mainly when it came to the National Guard. But as far as that federal surge is concerned, you guys can go fact check me. It seems to be highly successful in favor of the Trump administration. And don't worry, if there was an issue, I would definitely be calling it out, and we do that on the show. We are not afraid to call out when things are wrong, but just trying to point to some evidence that to the Trump administration, they have some data that helps them out, like in Washington, D.C. or in Memphis, things like that.
So yes, we saw a 30% reduction in homicides, shootings, shooting victims, all down. In fact, the city of Chicago doubled the amount of the national average in terms of violence reduction because, you know, in my role as mayor, it's about showing up for working people. We've revamped the Detectives Bureau to bring closure and accountability in the city of Chicago, 71% clearance rate. So we're solving crime. We're building more affordable homes. I've reopened mental health clinics, expanded mental health care, investing in our young people. Over 31,000 young people had summer jobs because we know that policing alone is not going to save our kids.
Okay, now
That has
some more context when it comes to Chicago specifically. Keep in mind, when it comes to Chicago, the mayor is saying he has some indications that federal agents will be returning in spring. Now, Chief Bovino, as of right now, he's not around to be a part of these federal operations. Chief Bovino has been sent back to his sector. If this is true, that there will be federal operations in spring, we don't know how that's going to work. We don't know if it's going to be like Operation Midway Blitz Part 1, where you had a Chief Bovino, 200 federal agents, and you do whatever you want to do in that city as far as finding illegal immigration. So if this is true and we see another federal surge, or federal elements in Chicago, the reason why this is going to be interesting for a part 2 is because the mayor of Chicago recently put in a new executive order that his police department will not be working with federal agents, but furthermore, he wants his police officers to gather data of the federal agents if there is wrongdoing. So he wants his police officers to quite literally go onto a scene, and you guys can go fact check this. We already did a video on it, and he's even said it verbatim. He wants his police officers to figure out who's like the leader in charge during the operation, gather the data in case there are future prosecutions. So I will be looking out for that as far as using a police force to not work with the deportation operations, but to be there to gather data on behalf of the city of Chicago. Just to show you guys, Governor Tim Walz has not really been saying much here recently. The last he posted was February 6th, February 5th. Again, I don't know if it's because people are expecting some answers as to why there's so much cooperation, or maybe a little bit of a change of tune as far as the pushback against the Trump administration. But Governor Tim Walz has not really been saying much. It also could be because it's the Super Bowl. Now, real quick, wrapping up with Minnesota, this is also going very viral right now on X. An independent report that has to do with fraud.
This was definitely the most egregious thing I have seen, maybe in my whole time working at OLA.
Office of the Legislative Auditor released a damning report finding state employees fabricating records to cover up mismanagement of money, tax money. It's another black eye for the State Department of Human Services.
Now, I do want to say Governor Tim Walz has never denied that there's fraud in his state, but I think where we get to the crossroad is how much fraud there is and who is to blame. I don't have that clip for you, but Governor Tim Walz, he does appear in these interviews and says, yeah, there is fraud. But again, the argument from the Trump admin is like, yeah, there seems to be a lot more than what you're indicating.
27 years with the Office of the Legislative Auditor, a statement like that from Judy Randall means something. After past suspicions, she says her most recent audit proved state workers were fabricating documents to cover up mismanagement of taxpayer money.
So these documents should exist. They didn't. We asked for them. All of a sudden, they now exist. And in at least one case, it was created wholesale and backdated by 2 years to give the impression that it had always been there and been done on time.
The OLA audited the Behavioral Health Administration within the Department of Human Services, which issues grants, nearly $200 million of taxpayer money each year to addiction and mental health service providers. But the audit found BHA was not making sure those providers were doing the work.
BHA didn't conduct the site visits. Our auditors went and conducted the site visits that BHA should have done. And we identified serious concerns that services weren't being provided.
One of the grants examined by OLA was $1.6 million issued to the Wellness Collaborative through Zion Baptist Church in North Minneapolis. According to the OLA report, BHA didn't have documentation to give auditors to show that the services were rendered. What's more, the audits...
And by the way, it should be noted that the Trump administration said, we're willing to downsize the federal element that has to do with deportations. But as far as whoever federal agents or whatever federal element is in charge of this, that part is not downsizing. So keep that in mind. The general umbrella term of downsizing of federal agents, that was strictly, it looked like Border Patrol element and some of these deportation assets.
Says the grant manager directly profited by leaving BHA and months later providing consulting services to the Wellness Collaborative for the grant she managed, which...
Okay, so I think you guys get it. Just wanted to show you people are still focusing a lot on this fraud, and it is rather interesting to see what people seem to focus on the most. Is it the fraud, the deportation? Some people loop it together. The Trump administration sees it all under one umbrella, one mission. Okay, now moving on to this part of the show. This is going to be my version of the Super Bowl as far as all of these different politicians. Every Sunday, politicians go on CNN, they go on news networks, and they try to clarify what they may have said over the week. And this right here is a lingering stat over the Democrats that I have no idea how they're going to get around, but it's just what's happening right now. 71% of Democrats want voter ID, and here is Hakeem Jeffries trying to clarify his points. So here we go.
But requiring basic ID in order to vote is really popular. A Pew poll from a few months ago showed 83% of Americans, including 71% of your fellow Democrats, support requiring an ID to vote. Why are they wrong?
I mean, she just said, why are they wrong off the bat?
I haven't said that they're wrong. We know that states are the ones who are empowered to conduct elections, and every state should be allowed to decide the best way to proceed to ensure that there's a free and fair election. Here in New York, there are, in fact, voter identification requirements. The question is that what Republicans are trying to do is to engage in clear and blatant voter suppression. They know that if there's a free and fair election in November, they're going to lose. In fact, Republicans have been losing every single election since Donald Trump was sworn in January of last year, including most recently decisively in Texas, and of course, losing all across the country, up and down the ballot.
So this is like the fourth or maybe the third politician that CNN has had on, or maybe even MSN. Chuck Schumer was asked the same exact question. Hey, Mr. Chuck Schumer, you are aware like a lot of people want the voter ID, and then we got a non-answer, not specifically acknowledging the 71%. And right here, again, I wish we had a direct answer as to specifically referencing that poll number or that statistic, because I would understand if that number was like a 50-50, you could sort of get away with not talking about it, but overwhelmingly, that stat skews within the favorability of people want voter ID. So you guys can let me know if you're satisfied with this answer so far, but...
In the November off-year elections, in places like New Jersey or Virginia or New York.
Yeah, and they've been losing. I mean, Virginia is a good example. They have a requirement to show your ID, and Democrats won very, very handily across the way. So why not maybe even just take that off the table and say, okay, maybe not a passport or birth certificate, but show ID?
Well, first of all, every state is empowered to be able to make the decision on their own, and we completely and totally support that. What Donald Trump wants to do is try to nationalize the election. Translation, steal it, and we're not going to let it happen. We stop them.
Look, maybe I'm ignorant. I will never claim to be the smartest person in the room. I don't know what part I'm missing as far as how he would steal the election, because I would love to know like what the actual argument and talking point is so I can reiterate that to you guys. Do you guys know what the argument is as to why that would steal the election? Because I personally don't get it. And I'm just being super truthful with you guys, being as transparent as possible. I don't understand what exactly that would entail.
In terms of their gerrymandering efforts, where they were going to try to redraw congressional maps in red states throughout the nation, not expect Democrats to respond forcefully, and try to rig the midterms. They failed. We've stopped Donald Trump from being able to federalize the National Guard, which we believe was probably part of some toxic attempt to unleash troops on American cities all across the nation and intimidate people from voting. And we're going to stop him from nationalizing the election. This is going to be a free and fair election. It's going to be conducted like every other election, where states and localities have the ability to administer the laws.
Okay, and this was also the first time I did not hear the argument that if you are married and then you get divorced, it would be difficult to change your last name. That was an argument we heard a lot last week. Chuck Schumer used that argument twice. So we did not hear it this time around. So anyway, that interview was going rather viral. And again, coming from Mr. Jeffries, I think a lot of people wanted some clarification as far as why you're still pushing for no voter ID. But that is his answer so far. So you guys can let me know if you're satisfied with that.
If you ain't got what it takes to go get the right documentation to show that you're a citizen, if voting doesn't matter any more to you than that, I don't give a damn if you ever vote again, because I don't care what you have to say. And if that's mean or elitist or whatever, I really don't care. And if you're a politician and those are the people you're advocating for, I really hope you lose too. Because if you're going to be in the greatest and most prosperous country in the world, you should want to take part in it and give a little to do it. I mean,
Again, this is in reference to the argument of, well, if we make this law, it's going to be just a pain in the butt. It's going to be a little more complicated to get that ID and have it ready. Again, the main argument we kept hearing was the divorce argument, and if like you're a wife, you're going to have to change your name. So this is in response to that type of argumentation. Or how it's a pain in the butt to have a passport if you don't have a driver's license. And, you know, the complications of it, the headache.
JFK, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. You can find your birth certificate and go get a free ID to vote. That's what you can do for your country.
Okay, so you guys can let me know how you feel about that, whether or not you accept the argument that it's hard to get that ID. Here is Senator Tammy Baldwin again. This is kind of our version of the Super Bowl. Every live show I do, whether it's the morning show or the Sunday afternoon show, we do a whole segment on politicians. They get on camera and they sort of go back and forth. And I think this is the best way to get a spread of what people are saying. And then you guys will know the arguments from here. So if you're about that life, make sure to please subscribe and like the video. And again, God bless all of you for being here. I really appreciate all of you guys.
ICE and DHS are out of control. Wisconsinites do not want their tax dollars spent on masked, armed, untrained agents who are acting lawlessly and not being held to account. I am demanding an end to roving patrols where masked armed agents simply roam our streets. Instead of acting pursuant to judicial warrants, they need to act lawfully. Masks off, body cameras on, identification clearly visible. No more of this anonymous mask.
Now, it should be clarified that ICE does have the ability to do these types of patrols. However, ICE, the way that they're historically or typically used are these more direct and targeted operations. And I've said this before, this is where I think actually Democrats and the media, this has sort of backfired, if I'm just being as fair as possible. When you identify everyone as ICE, and when you actually look at the organization who is doing the things that you're talking about, mainly as far as tactics are concerned, this is more of like a border patrol tactic, as far as like Chief Bovino would go into a city and they're doing these more spread out patrols in conjunction with ICE agents. So I'm just throwing that out there. Typically ICE will operate. It takes a lot of time, more targeted operations, but they specifically try to find individuals. So I'm just throwing that out there. In my opinion, when you reference everybody as ICE, you might be actually missing the intended point of your talking points here. And that goes with the media as well. And don't worry, even like right-leaning political figures are guilty of this as well, and some political outlets.
Roving pack of agents. ICE agents need to be subject to a code of conduct, just like all of our local law enforcement
Like Nick Shirley, he got called an ICE agent, if you guys saw that video.
are across this country. And when something happens, they need to be held to account. There needs to be an independent investigation when incidents happen. The American people are demanding accountability. I stand with them. I'm demanding accountability too. I just hope my Republican colleagues will join us in these common sense reforms.
Yeah, as of right now, I am not seeing any indications that Republicans will be getting on board with anything she is talking about, mainly because Tom Homan already had this meeting with Mike Johnson and said no to all of these demands, specifically the 10 demands we are seeing from Democrats. And thank you for the very generous $2 donation. I really appreciate that. From Yankees 2026. Good afternoon. It's cold here on the lake. And if you are referencing a lake in New York, I heard it's pretty cold out there. Moving on to Congresswoman Julie Johnson.
You terrorizing our communities and have untrained ICE agents run rogue, killing American citizens. This is not how trust is rebuilt, and this is not how we restore faith in the rule of law. And that is not how we honor the oath that every public servant takes to support and defend the Constitution.
I think if there was ever one talking point Republicans and Democrats would ever get on board with when it comes to some sort of resolution of peace between the two parties when it comes to ICE is more training. And I think everyone would agree more training is always good. You train a lot if you've ever been in the military. And so that would be maybe the one thing I was really trying to think about it, because Republicans are not going to vote for no mask. Republicans are cool, I think, with the obviously with the body cameras, but the no mask, no roving patrols, needing a warrant for every single arrest, they've said no to all of that. But if there's something, I guess more training would be one of them, or reoccurring training through the year.
Justice can never be conditional, and accountability can never be optional. I urge my colleagues to support the Qualified Immunity Accountability Act, pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and stand on the side of the Constitution, the rule of law, and the basic principle that justice must apply equally to everyone.
Okay, so again, I was just trying to think, maybe you guys can think of a better answer than me, but if Republicans are like, no, the 10 list of demands is definitely a big no as of right now. This is going to be Representative Robert Garcia, who has been a pretty big advocate for wanting a lot of reform, almost to the point of getting rid of ICE.
Personally, I don't believe that the Senate and the demands that have been put in place go far enough. ICE, particularly as an agency, cannot continue to exist. It is terrorizing and causing major harm to not just Minneapolis, but cities across the United States.
Okay, so you guys can let me know how you feel about that. No, we'll go here. Yeah, I want to play this clip. So this clip is going pretty viral as well. So this is going to be Senator Murphy. I'm very curious what you guys think about this. And by the way, I do want to educate you guys on this real quick. The majority of Democrats in these new polls that came out see illegal immigrants coming into the country as a crime, but the majority of Democrats also don't like ICE. And so Democrats see it as a crime, but they don't see the agency taking care of the crime as a good thing. So you guys can do whatever you want with that information, so keep that in mind. There's a bit of conflicting information there as far as the polling.
Donald Trump can't win the 2026 election, so he's putting in place a plan to steal it. That's not hyperbole. That's not conspiracy. He is literally doing it and telling you he's going to do it every single day.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
Let me put the pieces together for you. Just the pieces that have been put down on the table over the course of the past week and a half. The president sends a letter to state officials in Minnesota. He says, I'll be glad to take ICE officials out, but you got to give me control of your voter rolls. This is a key swing state. It's going to have an important gubernatorial election and an even more important Senate election. And Trump is saying, if you give me control of your voter lists, then I'll take the ICE agents out. We have the FBI raid of the voting office in Georgia. They take all these ballots to a place that we still don't know about, and we know exactly what's going to happen here. They're going to take these ballots, they're going to claim that they counted them again, and in fact, Donald Trump won Georgia, and that's going to be used by the president.
So again, it should be noted that none of this has been verified. This is simply his opinion. Again, a politician, or his theory might be the better way to explain this. I am just simply showing you this because it's out there, and I figured you might want to see this. So yeah, and thank you again for the generous $2 donation from Yankees 2026. No one is above the law, says Yankee 2026.
To do what he then told all of us he was going to do on a podcast just a day or two ago. Nationalize elections in key states. He wants the federal government, meaning Donald Trump's MAGA loyalists, to run elections in places like Georgia and Minnesota and probably Pennsylvania and Texas and Maine, anywhere where there's a race that might determine control of the House or the Senate. Over and over and over again, we see in front of our eyes what is happening. Donald Trump is taking the steps to create a pretext to take over state elections. That's what Georgia is about. He's using the power of the...
By the way, this is the most in-depth theory we have heard so far as why the president is using the federal government the way he is, or these federal agents.
Federal government to try to compel states to give him control of the elections. That's what Minnesota is about. And he's telegraphing openly what his desire is. That's what he said on the podcast. I want to nationalize elections. He's doing this because he knows in a fair and free election, he will lose. Republicans will lose. He's the most unpopular president, I think, ever. 1 year into a term, the polling today suggests that they're going to get wiped out in the House, so they might lose the Senate as well. He's got a deeply unpopular agenda, and so the only way that he can win, the only way the Republicans can win, is to steal the election. And the only way they can steal the election is for MAGA loyalists to insert themselves into state elections and take over so that they can either erase a whole bunch of Democrats off the voter rolls, or they can provide false counts, all the things that totalitarians do to rig elections. Keep your eyes wide open, because if we don't see clearly what is happening, an attempt to take over elections, to steal and rig elections, then we have no way to stop it.
Okay, so again, you guys can let me know how you feel about that. Thank you again for the very generous $2 donation from Yankees. Congress made these laws, and how they don't them, or I think you meant to say maybe don't enforce them. Thank you for the $2 donation. So that, again, that's from Kim Katie, USA. I think I saw you in the chat. Thank you so much for that video and sourcing that video for us. And that was Senator Murphy. Senator. And thank you again for the very generous $2 donation. Voting records are open, says Yankee 2026. Okay. That was... That's the first time I've heard something like that as far as from a politician this week, but let's continue.
Making a big push for the so-called SAVE Act, at least some Republicans are, that would require a proof of citizenship to be able to vote. I understand you and other Democrats oppose that. There are roughly 20 or so million voting age Americans who don't actually have the the papers that would be required to show readily available. But given the Republicans have undermined confidence in elections and the integrity of elections, what about the idea of voter ID, of photo ID being required to vote? Are you in favor of that? Can there be a compromise where Democrats and Republicans put forward photo ID as a requirement for voting?
So, Jonathan, what you've just asked is essentially Republicans have created distrust in the elections by making claims of non-existent fraud in the elections,
Okay, so right off the bat, I do want to say there are two main arguments right now, but I do want to say first, thank you so much for the $10 donation, Super Bowl Wing Fund. Thank you so much for that generosity. Yes, or the Puppy Bowl Wing Fund. I think I might be watching the Puppy Bowl. So there's two main arguments. One argument we are hearing is there's no fraud at all. No one's even talking about fraud. The second main argument is there is such little fraud, and the fraud that's been reported doesn't warrant all of this. It doesn't warrant a shutdown. It doesn't warrant the time taken, the money taken to make these laws. Those are really the two mainline arguments we are hearing as far as the pushback from politicians who don't want this law passed.
Shouldn't we use the distrust they've created in order to enact a voter suppression law, which is the SAVE Act, which would require people to have a birth certificate or passport, documents that millions of Americans don't have? Almost half the country doesn't have a passport, and I don't know where many millions of people would even...
And did we not just hear this, 5 minutes ago? It's hard to get that piece of ID argument. I don't know when I'm going to coin the argument, but people don't have the passport. So why would we pass this? And I understand that argument to an extent, but I'm curious how many of you are like, okay, then you should get the passport or get the documentation. So again, we just heard this argument, but I'm just trying to show you guys these are reoccurring arguments. Yankee 2026, another $2 donation says, skipping the Super Bowl. Thank you so much for that.
And find a birth certificate. So
but I asked you
phony fraud claims.
But I was asking you a different
or the birth certificate
question. Photo ID, because as you know, let's show up. There was a recent poll. There's been a lot of polls on this, but in one recent Pew poll, 83% of adults support requiring photo ID to vote. 71% of Democrats favor requiring photo ID. Is that?
There's simply just no getting around this. The poll just skews so in favor that Americans want this. It just is what it is. And I try to be as fair as possible on this show, but these are the stats. I am using left-leaning sources to even show this.
Something that you can support. And if not, why not?
It's still going to be something, Jonathan. It's still going to be something that disenfranchises people that don't have the proper real ID, driver's license ID, that don't have the ID necessary to vote, even though they are citizens. This is another way to simply try to suppress the vote. And the last thing I think we want to do is discourage more people, more citizens from voting while they're attacking those same elections, while they're trying to do away with absentee ballot voting, while they're trying to do away with being able to register to vote through the DMV or by the mail. So it's part of the broader disenfranchisement effort. And no, I don't think that's the right direction.
Okay. So you guys can let me know how you feel about that. Just trying to show you all the different arguments. And again, if I'm going to make my own argument and say this seems to be one of the main arguments, I can play you 19 other clips with the same exact argumentation. It's just difficult to get some of these IDs, and there's people out there, it might make it too hard to vote. And look, being able to vote is definitely a very important thing in this country. It's how policies get put into place. It's how the country was formed. So thank you, Gen Xer, for the very generous $5 donation. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, so you guys can let me know how you feel about that. Moving on, again, like I said, we kind of go through what all the different politicians are saying. Here's Tim Burchett was on TMZ a day ago talking about Bad Bunny, but I don't have permission to use TMZ's video. But TMZ, he's been in the media a lot here recently. Tim Burchett.
We have too much talk in Congress. Everybody wants to have a dadgum hearing, as you know, and then we follow some other shiny object down the road, and nothing occurs. But this is a president and a vice president of action, and we're going to see some action, and it's long overdue.
If there's one politician who is a Republican that has a lot of support, it's Tim Burchett. But I think where he differs is that he's also somebody who gets a lot of support who calls out other Republicans. He calls everybody out equally. So thank you for the super generous $2 donation from Wilson. Thank you. And Wilson just didn't even leave a text. He just left the donation and went on his way. Thank you so much for that. All right, here's Governor Moore. Here's what he had to say recently. A lot of governors getting into the chat as far as the political talking points here.
Governor, later this month, President Trump, will host an annual meeting of governors at the White House. He's only inviting Republican governors to that, which is traditionally a bipartisan event. And he's specifically excluding you and Democratic Governor Jared Polis from a separate dinner. You're the vice chair of the National Governors Association. Do you know why you are being called out and excluded?
It's particularly confusing because just a few weeks ago, I led a group of Democratic and Republican governors to the White House. And we had a meeting with the White House where we signed a memorandum of understanding around energy and trying to increase energy supply and bring down energy costs. And so one thing I know is this, is that you can uninvite, you can untweet, but you can never erase. And so if I was selected by my peers, both Democratic and Republican governors, to serve as the vice chair of the National Governors Association, we focus on getting things done for our people, and we're not interested in being able to go to fancy dinners with the president if he wants to exclude certain members. So since the president has decided that I'm not going to be invited, this will not be an NGA event.
Okay.
Meaning what?
Meaning the NGA will not support this dinner. If the president wants to have a dinner with his friends and have a black tie dinner with his friends on that night, that is perfectly fine. It will not be an NGA event.
And you have a commitment from Republican governors on that?
Oh, we have a commitment from the organization. This is a bipartisan organization where Democratic and Republican governors come together to work on addressing the needs of our people. And I'm honored that my peers selected me to be the vice chair of it. I'm thankful for the leadership of Kevin Stitt, a Republican, the Republican governor.
I do want to mention I don't have a response from the Trump administration as far as why this is the case. But for those of you wondering, he is the governor of Maryland, just so you are aware. And thank you for the generous $2 donation from Yankees. I read it, but you said not to read it.
From Oklahoma, who serves as the chair. And we know that in this time, the president cannot use this time to divide our organization. Our organization stands firm that if you exclude one, you exclude us all, and this will not be an NGA.
It should also be mentioned that Baltimore has always been on the list for not only a small federal surge, such as like what we saw that Chief Bovino was doing with the 200 federal agents. Baltimore has been on that list from the Trump administration like a full-blown federal surge like we're seeing in Memphis and Washington, D.C. We are still waiting to see if that happens, but President Trump has definitely mentioned Baltimore quite a lot.
Governor, before I let you go, I just want to understand what you think the reason is that you are being singled out, and Jared Polis, but from your perspective, why are you being excluded from this dinner?
Well, I've long learned that I'm not trying to get inside over the president's psyche. It's not a good use of my time. It's not lost to me that I'm the only black governor in this country, and I find that to be particularly painful, considering the fact that the president is trying to exclude me from an organization that not only are my peers have asked me to help to lead, but then also a place where I know I belong in. And so I've long learned, and I've talked to the people and the children of my state, is that I'm never in a room because of someone's benevolence nor kindness. I'm not in a room because of a social experiment. I'm in the room because I belong there, and the room was incomplete until I got there.
You're saying that he's excluding you because of the color of your skin?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to the president's intent. It's not lost to me, but I can't speak to the president's intent.
Okay, so again, I will be looking for a response as far as what is going on with that situation. One thing I do know is that President Trump and this particular governor, they have clashed before or had some words back and forth. But you guys can let me know how you feel about this. It is typically the Trump admin responds quite fast to things like this, but since it's the Super Bowl, I'm sure that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, I will be looking into that for you guys. Don't worry. Moving forward. Senator Mark Kelly, do you guys want to see? Let's move here. Senator John Fetterman the one senator that really brings us on a roller coaster ride of talking points, in my opinion. He doesn't want to get rid of ICE, but he's also not the biggest fan of Kristi Noem. As you guys know, the senator is definitely an outlier of a Democrat in some of these talking points. So let's see what he has to say.
And now, me as a Democrat, I do not believe that it's unreasonable or to show ID just to vote. And I remind everybody that less than a year ago in Wisconsin, they added that to the Constitution by a 63%, passing, to put that in the Constitution that you have to show ID to vote. And they also elected a very, very liberal justice into their Supreme Court. So it's not a radical idea for regular Americans to show your ID to vote. And it's absolutely, those things are not Jim Crow or anything.
And the one politician who's using that terminology would be Senator Schumer. And so this is a direct response to that, calling it of Jim Crow type vibes. But here's a politician, a Democrat, saying otherwise.
Of course, that's part of an awful, awful legacy of our nation for so long ago. But where we are now, trying to find a way forward, just trying to call balls and strikes, seeing what's unreasonable, hopefully we don't have to do, and pay the TSA people and everyone, secure our border, and focus on deporting all of those kinds of criminals, wherever they are. That's the guy that votes for that and supports that as a Democrat, and I don't ever want to vote to shut our government down again.
Right. And you are very much where the people are. Look, that's what most people would like to see.
And to be honest with you, what he is saying and his talking points actually are almost perfectly in line with the polling as far as what he's saying, not to shut the government down, supporting going after criminals, supporting voter ID. So that's probably why you're not seeing too much pushback on television, is because this is like quite literally what the polling is saying.
They prioritize the criminals, take the criminals out of the country who are here illegally but are also committing crime. But I mean, is there any other way to view the fact that Democrat leadership refused to have ID to vote? Is there any other way to read it other than they want illegals to vote? I mean, can you read it any other way?
Well, I mean, for me, the Save Act is not going to pass because of the filibuster, because they would need at least 7 or 8 Democratic votes to pass that. And now remember also, all the Democrats, all we wanted to eliminate the filibuster, except for it was Manchin and Sinema. They wanted to eliminate the filibuster, and now our party loves the filibuster. And then I do think think the filibuster is a good thing, and it does force us to work together overall.
Right. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I will say this as a Democrat, I do not believe it's radical or extreme to just produce ID to vote overall.
Okay. Now, again, to be clear, as far as why this all sounds confusing, that is not necessarily what the argument is from what we just heard, whether it's a Chuck Schumer or whoever. The argument is it's hard to get that ID, or there are people who don't have the ID, so it's hard to get the ID. So, again, just trying to clarify that. But, yeah, let me know how you guys feel about that. Okay, so this is also going very viral. I have to play this clip for you guys. This is Texas State Senator Rep. Wu from Texas. Yeah, this is circulating right now on the internet.
We need to be out there. We need to not only support and remember the name of Miss Good, but we need to remember why she died. She died because she was a proud American. She was a proud American who understood her rights and was free to exercise it. And they took her life for it. And instead of our response being silence, we should be louder than ever.
And if you guys are unaware who this is, just a quick recap for 2025. Do you guys remember when all of a sudden some members of the Texas state legislature might get arrested? They have their warrants out for them. He was involved with that, of the possibility of quite literally getting arrested by the Texas Marshals.
We should scream in their face.
Which didn't happen, but this is the part that's circulating right here.
We should be louder than ever. We should scream in their faces. We should not give them a moment of peace until they give us our nation back.
Okay. We should scream in their faces, to use his wording verbatim, and you guys can let me know how you feel about that. That is getting a lot of views right now and traction on X. But I think those are most of the clips I wanted to show you guys from the Super Bowl here. Okay, I want to show you guys this as well, because unless you look for it, you're probably not going to find this. So this is going to be Ohio Representative Ishmael Muhammad. This is circulating as well. Introducing a bill to restrict ICE enforcement at sensitive locations. Obviously, this is becoming super trendy right now. It just happened in New York City. But this is a state law.
Every Ohioan deserves the right to feel safe at their school and place.
And I apologize for the audio that's on their end.
Deserves the right to feel safe at their school and place of worship. This bill would define sensitive location as sites like a place of worship, courthouse, hospital, educational institution, public religious ceremony, organizations assisting children, pregnant women, victims of crime or abuse, or individuals with mental or physical disabilities. Under the Trump administration, we have seen these types of locations being used for brutal immigration enforcement at the hands of unmarked, unidentified officers, what are often places of solace and importance to the community. Unfortunately, can be easily turned into places where people can no longer feel safe or secure.
Okay. So, might have that happening in Ohio, but this is going to be a response to that. This is Mahek Cook. Here's Mahek Cook's breakdown of this specific law that might get passed.
Hey, Ohio. This week, State Representative Ishmael Muhammad, a Democrat, introduced legislation that would restrict ICE officers from carrying out federal immigration in our great state of Ohio.
And keep in mind, the most amount of pushback we saw in the state of Ohio, which Ohio is a conservative state, was in Columbus. When you guys remember, like, what, maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, we heard about ICE agents in Ohio. That was really specifically focusing on Columbus, and that operation was called Operation Buckeye.
This bill would define sensitive location as sites like a place of worship, courthouse, hospital, educational institution, public religious ceremony, organizations assisting children, pregnant women, victims of crime or abuse, or individuals with mental or physical disabilities. Under the Trump administration, we have seen these types of locations being used for brutal immigration enforcement at the hands of unmarked, unidentified officers, what are often places.
This bill is built around this dangerous premise that enforcement itself creates fear, and that fear justifies carving out these so-called protected spaces where the law cannot be enforced. Well, if fear alone is enough to suspend law enforcement, then the law no longer applies based on conduct, right? It just applies based on feelings. And if that is what the standard is, the hypocrisy is just obvious. The fear standard, because, well, why stop at schools? Why stop at hospitals, public spaces? Why not people's homes? If illegal criminals are facing removal, they're naturally afraid in their homes because they violated that law. That fear is not accidental. It's because of their illegal conduct. So should their private residences now be sensitive locations? What about entire neighborhoods? Should they be off limits? Because enforcement makes lawbreakers fearful and uncomfortable. This is obstruction. The goal isn't to protect Ohioans today or these so-called protected spaces. It's to systematically shrink law enforcement's ability to operate, to make enforcement impossible. Ohio is not a sanctuary. And let's talk about the history.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to Ohio, vastly in support of the federal operations as far as deportation operations. Again, the pushback we saw was quite literally isolated in that Columbus area, and we haven't even really heard too much about what is happening right now in Columbus. But as far as pushing a law or trying to pass a law that would focus on the entire state, I personally don't see how that could get passed. But nonetheless, I think one thing people make a mistake in is that just because we think it can't happen now, you never know, it could happen in the future. Such as wanting to abolish ICE. I don't think the numbers are there or the support as of right now, but there's a lot more support than we saw just 2 years ago. So that's the way I see it. And I want to show you guys this. So this is also heavily circulating around X. Kim Katie USA actually found this story, but Homeland Security reposted it. On February 5th, ICE officers conducted a targeted operation with a warrant to arrest Gonzalo Ortega, a violent criminal illegal alien from Mexico, with 3 previous arrests for domestic assault. When ICE officers attempted to conduct a vehicle stop of Ortega, he resisted arrest, fled from law enforcement, and ran inside his home. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is because the video is heavily circulating and people are debating whether or not ICE did the right thing or should have ICE gone even further. And I'm going to let you guys decide. ICE officers pursued this violent criminal into his home, but Ortega fled out a window and is still at large. Anyone with information regarding his whereabouts, you can contact Homeland. We are consulting with U.S. Attorney's Office to pursue federal criminal charges. Agitators who lay a hand on our law enforcement officers will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So what exactly is going on here? Why did Homeland Security decide to respond to this? Well, here's why. The video really speaks for itself, so I will let you guys decide.
Hey! They're inside my house with no warrant. U.S. citizen and no warrant. Inside my house. They're inside my house. Open the door. Wait, Mom, is that you? Wait, Mom, look at this. Where is he? Get out the fucking house. You don't have.
Okay, so at this point, they are inside of the house. Now, the pushback on this clip is, they shouldn't be pursuing, they should not be entering the house. The pushback from Homeland, of course, is people are getting in our way, and he was able to escape as of right now.
Fucking warrant. Get out the house. No warrant. You didn't even touch him. Why are you touching him? Why are you touching him?
Papi, es de para acá, es de para acá.
¿Por qué le estás tocando? Are you good? No. Get out. Get in here.
Where the fuck is your warrant? Where is your warrant? Where is your warrant? Where the fuck is your warrant? Hurry up! Get the fuck out! Get the fuck out and you broke the window! Get the fuck out and you broke the window! Get the fuck out! Get the fuck out! Where's your warrant? Where is your warrant? Come on, arrested! Where is your warrant? Hurry the fuck up!
So, of course, this right here is the other point of contention, the people in their house asking for a warrant and then physical contact being made. Now, without a doubt, I think both parties are looking into an attorney. Homeland Security quite literally said we're looking into an attorney to press charges, and I wouldn't be surprised if the same will be happening. So I think this specific case will definitely be recirculating here in the very near future, so make sure to please subscribe. I will be tracking some more stories involving this. Or updates. And Kim Katie, the person who sourced this in the chat, said, "Hat guy, I believe, is ERO. The big guy is a U.S. Marshal," says Kim Katie USA. Thank you.
It's not Anthony. It's this other guy that's trying to help. Anthony's right here, but me and Anthony are not getting in this because I don't know. I don't want to have to. Hold on.
I didn't know you were still there. I didn't know you were still there.
Get out of the fucking house. He broke. Fuck eyes. I'm recording you. I'm recording you. Right there. Go down here. Get started, guys.
Okay, so the question really comes to, if you have a warrant for somebody or you're making a targeted arrest and they run into a private residence, can you go into that residence? Then number 2, if there is obstruction inside of the private residence of the people who own the residence, what do you do from there? Again, I will be doing a follow-up on all of that. Generally speaking, we've seen this a lot in Chicago, actually. Federal agents can generally pursue you. In fact, we saw this last week where federal agents pursued a man into a soft spot area in California, which would be a church parking lot. And Homeland specifically said, we were not targeting the church, we were pursuing a man we had already targeted, and the operation revolved around him. But again, this case gets complex considering, again, private residence, people inside the house asking for a warrant. So we will see what happens with this. I'm just trying to show you guys. I definitely think this story will be recirculating. Without a doubt. Let us continue.
4 Americans are dead after an illegal migrant driving a semi-truck swerved into oncoming traffic and struck a van, killing 4 people. 3 of them were from the same Amish family, Henry Eicher and his 2 sons, Paul and Menno.
Let me know if you guys heard about this story. I'm sure you probably did. This story is also going pretty viral right now that occurred over the week.
An American family utterly destroyed by an illegal immigrant. The Eichers joined other Americans like Sabina Durden Coulter and Marcus Coleman, who you met on this show last week. Sabina's son Dominic was killed by an illegal migrant driving a truck, and Marcus's 7-year-old daughter, Delilah, sustained such severe brain damage, she lost the ability to talk.
I hear that all the time. Well, he could have been killed by an American, and it's just a few. Well, where's the limit? 5, 10, 20,000?
I think people need to understand the true severity behind it. They want to have the American dream, but they don't want to go the correct routes. And they robbed my daughter of her American dream.
Wow.
Where are the protests for them? The Eichers, like Dominic and Delilah, were failed by everyone. The Biden administration, who paroled the driver into the country. The state of Pennsylvania, which issued him a CDL. The trucking company that employed him instead of an American citizen, no doubt paying him lower wages.
Now, look, we just got this recent poll that says Americans like ID. Now, obviously, the implication is the ID has to be valid. So I would not be surprised, again, in the near future, if the Trump administration, they've already been doing this, but trying to crack down on fraud ID or false ID involving some of these truckers.
Minneapolis. A new Harvard-Harris poll conducted at the end of January, crucially after the tragic deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, found that 52% of Americans still support deporting every illegal migrant.
Which, by the way, that did drop. That number used to be around 65 to 68%, but that number did drop. And when that percentage came out, the number I'm citing, that was at the beginning of the summer. That was before we started to see from June to like October-ish, where we saw this big push from the Trump administration. That number was 67%. And that has dropped to 52, but that is still majority. So keep that in mind.
A new Marquette poll found 56% support for deporting every illegal migrant. A Signal poll found an even higher number, 61% support for mass deportations of all illegal migrants. It's true that
So, okay, I will be keeping track of that. I'm just trying to show you guys all the different stories as far as relevancy to the type of videos we cover and stories we cover. Very, very sad stuff, but with a lot of the polling and the data that seems to be in favor of the Trump administration and what they're trying to do or accomplish, I wouldn't be surprised if there's another crackdown or a bigger crackdown on this the trucking stuff that's happening, unfortunately. All right, so yeah, that was my Super Bowl live stream, my Puppy Bowl live stream, or whatever it's called. Is it called the Puppy Bowl? I don't know. I think it is. That's like the charity event, right? Right before the Super Bowl. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed. And by the way, disclaimer, not sponsored, not affiliated to either of those organizations. That was a joke. Not a sponsor, no affiliation. It was a joke. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be doing my best to get some updates on new talking points. This week is going to be a crucial week for Republicans and Democrats. Very crucial to try and getting their votes or non-votes in. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of back and forth. That 71% number of Democrats supporting voter ID is going to be lingering this week without a doubt. So I will be keeping you guys up to date with all of the relevant updates for the week. And I appreciate all of you. And I always, whenever there's breaking news, we always go live. So if we have something massive, I will be going live. So make sure to turn on your notifications or subscribe. That helps out a ton. So I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope I was as fair as possible. I really try to be as fair for both sides, give equal critique, and I allow you guys to have an informed opinion. So I hope I was able to do that for you guys. And of course, please pray for peace. Like we always say at the end of every one of our shows, we are very big advocates for peace on this YouTube channel. And I'm glad we can create a community and we can do that. So thank you guys again for everything. Pray for peace. God bless all of you. I really appreciate all of it. And I have to say it, make sure to seek Christ. So thank you guys for everything. God bless you all. And I really appreciate all of you guys. Thank you.